Do you regret making that shipping container video? Um, hey everyone, welcome to my first Q&A video. We recently crossed 60,000 subscribers and there are many new people on this channel, so I thought that this would be a good way to connect with y'all. I think I'm supposed to do this on a weekly or a monthly basis, but there is much more interesting content to cover. Anyway, I've collected some comments from YouTube videos, from the community tab, as well as from Instagram. Let's get started. What single building technology will have an impact on affordable housing? I think engineered wood products are going to be the future of the industry. Cross-laminated timber, LVLs, glue lam, etc. They use less energy to manufacture than steel or concrete. Production costs will come down in time and they will become cheaper and more structurally sound alternatives to pine studs. I'm hesitant to say that prefab is the answer because it is such a vague term. I also think that the European construction industry is years ahead of the American industry. If we want a glimpse of the future, we just have to look across the pond. Is Belinda Carr my real name? Yes. When people think of an Indian or a person of Indian origin, they have a stereotypical image in their head that doesn't fit many of the 1.4 billion people. My family comes from a state in India called Goa, which was a Portuguese colony. You can find a strong Portuguese or Spanish influence in our names, the way we dress, etc. It's more westernized. My parents named me after Belinda Carlisle, the 80s singer. I have a funny story about that. My maiden name is Belinda de Souza, which is a Portuguese surname, but I took my husband's name when I got married, Carr, which is weirdly close to Carlisle. How did I pay bills and student loans after I quit architecture? I completed a 5-year Bachelor of Architecture degree in the UAE and then a 3-year Master of Architecture degree in the US. I had a full academic and financial scholarship in undergrad. This was a lifesaver because I wouldn't have been able to afford it otherwise. I also had 2 jobs. I was working as a writing center tutor and a writing fellow, and I also earned some money through design competitions. My Master of Architecture program was 1.5 years of education, which my parents paid for, and 1.5 years of work experience. I saved every cent I could, slept on people's couches, and lived really frugally. I also had a partial academic scholarship, and I had a job as a research assistant. So I was very lucky to not have any student loans. When I quit my job in 2016, I was still making money with my Palette Snobs business, and I was also working as an independent contractor for 3 to 4 architecture firms. I didn't come from money or privilege, as if someone was implying that with that question. I just worked my off. Where in the US would you ideally like to live and why? I loved living in San Francisco. It's a magical but ridiculously expensive place. I lived in Cathedral Hill for about 7 months. The Sutra Baths is my favorite place in the US. It was a swimming pool complex that burnt down in 1964. The ruins are both tragic and enchanting. Standing on the edge, watching the sunset over the Pacific Ocean, wrapped by the cliffs behind you, makes you feel so small and insignificant compared to nature, but also so powerful and energized. How long did you live in Texas before you decided to observe the customary practice of displaying at least one Texas-shaped thing on your wall? That's funny. You're probably talking about that artwork up there. Let me go get it. So, when I moved here from San Francisco, I was disheartened by how dead Dallas felt in comparison. I wanted to try to learn to love, or at least like, Dallas. So I built a website called I'm at DFW, which was inspired by SF Fun Cheap. The website showcased free or cheap things to do around Dallas. I joined the Dallas Makerspace and I laser cut this outline of Texas. That's the logo I made for the company. Coke or Pepsi? Neither. I don't drink soda, only water. What are your thoughts on the maker community? YouTube has empowered the everyday consumer and demystified home renovation, home maintenance, design, construction, etc. But I think it only interests a certain type of person. None of my siblings or my in-laws take on all the home renovation that we do, and they don't build furniture because it doesn't interest them. Their time and money is put to better use in other activities. The maker community will continue to grow, but it's not going to be a global revolution. Have you ever thought about going into education, teacher or professor? Yes, I got my master's because I wanted to be a professor, but once I entered the workforce, I realized how disconnected architecture school is from reality and how it doesn't prepare you for the real world. It was very disappointing, and now I'm way too cynical and jaded to be a professor. What's the most important skill an architecture student should work on? Two skills: your confidence and time management. Most architects are timid and introverted. There's a clear difference between the person that gets into architecture and the person that gets into construction, real estate, and other related fields. I think there's a lot that we can learn from engineers and general contractors. What kind of house would you build? We have a vision of building an anti-contractor home that would be a low-maintenance structure that the homeowner can easily take care of. All the plumbing and electrical wires would be outside the walls for easy access. The home would be heavily influenced by commercial buildings that have a central structural and service core, and all the space around that core is flexible and can be divided as needed. Ideally, it's an all-electric, off-the-grid home that runs on solar power. Why, as you stated in another video, is home ownership a scam? After we got married, we lived in a studio apartment for 4 years before buying this house. During those 4 years, we were able to spend our time and money building a business, creating long-term goals, setting up multiple sources of income, learning, and just enjoying a carefree life. I sometimes wonder whether home ownership is a life goal or a social construct to keep people tied to their jobs, to keep them busy and in debt. Home ownership eats up a lot of your time and money. The constant maintenance is a distraction. I don't think everyone realizes that a 30-year home loan means that you're paying close to double for that house. A $200,000 home could end up costing close to $400,000. I think people should treat home buying like buying stocks. Only use your disposable leftover income and don't buy something beyond your means. Is it practical to improve the efficiency and insulation of a home built from the 1970s? What is the ROI? The construction industry is very short-term oriented. People buy a home to sell it in 3 years. They don't care about the bones of the home. They only care about the stuff that goes in it, which is completely understandable. Humans are emotional beings that care about appearances and care about keeping up with trends. If you plan on living in the home for 20 years or more, you will see the ROI in terms of energy savings. But if you're planning on flipping it and selling right away, you probably won't. It's very unfortunate, and I hope it changes in the future with more consumer awareness. What did you want to be when you were growing up? I won this creative writing competition in 3rd grade where I said that I wanted to be a doctor and cure cancer, even though surgery is disgusting. After watching Jurassic Park, I wanted to be a paleontologist or an archaeologist, and then I wanted to be an astronomer, and then a mechanical engineer, and I finally settled on an architect in 11th grade. Describe some philosophies that you guide your life by. Well, learn something new every day. Don't just work hard, work smart. The person I am tomorrow should be better than the person I am today. It's normal to change your opinion when presented with new information. It doesn't mean that you have to go back and cancel out all your accomplishments up to that point, or that you have to be apologetic about your past. Appreciate how far you've come and how much you've matured. Changing opinions is normal and healthy. What suggestions might you have to amend building codes to encourage better building practices than just meeting minimum requirements? I think the lack of consumer awareness has allowed the construction industry to get away with just doing the bare minimum. YouTube and the internet in general is instrumental in educating the consumer on new building technologies and bypassing all those old school laws and codes. If consumers start to demand better built homes, we'll see codes change much quicker, I hope. Take R value myths, for example. People now know the difference between the stated and the actual R values. Containers aside, are we ever going to get the affordable, robust, simple, and revolutionary disruption to the housing market that some of us naively hoped we would? And do you ever wear Stetson? I had to Google what a Stetson is, but no, I don't. The Texan cowboy stereotype is very inaccurate, unfortunately. As for disruption to the housing market, I am very cynical about that ever happening, just because We have gone through so many failed attempts at it, like I mentioned in a previous video. Modular, prefab, 3D printed concrete is being pushed right now as solutions, but time will tell if they're legitimate or just fads. What's the best interaction you've had since becoming a YouTuber, and what's the worst? I can't think of specific interactions, but this channel has connected me to people all around the world. People in New Zealand, Poland, the Philippines, Canada, etc. People I would have never met in person. The worst would probably be the threats and abuse I got from that shipping container video. You see, a fraction of a percent of Indians scam people, so the remaining 1.4 billion people are not allowed to use that word. It doesn't matter if you're an American who's made valid points on a topic, the S word is apparently off limits for me. Do you regret making that shipping container video? When I made that video, I had like 1,500 subscribers. It was a quick thing that I put together just because I was frustrated with the blind fascination with containers. We were force-fed that idea in architecture school too. But when I learned the reality of what it takes to convert one, I realized that it's a marketing scam. People are shelling out thousands of dollars hoping that these containers are going to be quick conversions when they have no idea of the drawbacks. After making that video, I received overwhelming support from people who had bought containers that turned into money pits, so they had to abandon them. From people who had bought cheap shipping container homes from China that were a waste of money. From city officials who said that they bookmarked the video to show the next person that approached them for a container home permit. From engineers that called it the greatest green building pet peeve. And from Benjamin Uyeda, who probably has the most thorough and realistic container home series on YouTube. While I didn't make the marketing scam side of it clear, that video was an invaluable learning experience for me. It taught me to improve my communication skills, to deal with trolls. I have a very interesting story to end this Q&A. I recently listened to a Clubhouse discussion that was moderated by the CEO of one of these shipping container conversion companies. They spent 2 hours discussing all the drawbacks of converting containers, and they mentioned all the points that I brought up in my video. The thin walls that can dent easily, the roof that flexes, thermal bridging of steel studs, vapor issues, etc. They didn't make a strong case for container homes, in my opinion. And after a year of doubting myself, listening to this CEO speak was satisfying. So no, I do not regret it one bit. It obviously wasn't a personal attack on people who want to build that way or on a particular company. It triggered a minority of viewers, but I have no control over their emotions. Anyway, I'm going to wrap this up now. This went on for a lot longer than I expected it to. Thanks again for sending me your questions. Let me know if this was interesting and if you think we should do this more often. I'm sorry I couldn't get to everybody's question, but I have made a note of them and I'll address them in future videos. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. Thanks again for your support and for watching my videos. See ya.